Welcome everyone to today's very special stream. This is what I said last Thursday, but you thought that was only one day. No, we are here for the first ever quantum chess tournament, the semifinals today and tomorrow, the final clash. Chris, thank you so much for joining me again for
Of
this very
course. I'm
special
excited to be
first
here.
occasion. Sorry, I thought I was hearing myself too. Sometimes it happens, and I'm gonna need to make sure that I I had a bit of an audio glitch there from my old stream. I'm booming constantly. Apologies. I was interrupting you there. Chris Cantwell, Mr. Chris Cantwell is the creator of the game that we are witnessing today, the first tournament of quantum chess. Chris, you will be explaining to the viewers all the magic. I call it magic, but I know it's science. All the magic behind the quantum moves that the players will be making on the board. This is a very special occasion, part of the Q2B20 ever quantum chess tournament. Last Thursday, we saw the quarterfinals taking place, and today the semifinals. Tomorrow, the final clash. Chris, what do you think we can expect today? Will we see more quantum moves, first of all?
I think so. So we actually, after the games last week, both Alex and Sean reached out to me to ask for help in prepping for today. So I think both of them are going to have some interesting stuff to show us. Um, so let me
I'm
bring
looking
up the
forward.
bracket, I guess.
I'm looking forward to that, Chris. And I think
Yeah.
there's an audio issue on my end. If there's any way you can increase my microphone, I think I can't be heard much. It happens with
How's
Zoom
that?
calls.
Is that better?
Hopefully it's better. Please let us know so that we have the best possible production for you guys. There will be lots of action on the quantum chessboard, but we need to make sure that you can hear us. It's much better. Thank you,
Okay,
Chris. Whatever
good.
you did has worked out. Let's take a look at the bracket.
Okay. So we have our bracket here. We had last week Doug Strain from Google won, and Nico. I'm going to butcher his name. Maybe you can say his last name.
I think it's Gresiak, not an
Gresiak.
easy surname to pronounce. This will be one of the clashes in the semifinals. Nico with the white pieces against Doug, and in the other match, Sean seems to be on the outside of the bracket. Ethan won Sean's queen in that crucial match, but then Sean made a huge comeback with that back rank rook move and ended up hunting down the king of Ethan. So Sean has made it to the semifinals and will be facing Alexander Kubica, who made one of the most brilliant quantum chess preparations we have ever seen. Well, up to today, obviously. Maybe in the future there will be more, but Alexander surprised us with the split knight move last Thursday against the Sicilian defense. And he said to us today in the preparation call that he thinks the Sicilian defense, which is one of the most popular openings in traditional chess, may not be really good in quantum chess, or at least it can be exploited with that knight split.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today. If you're ready, I'll go ahead and let the players know they can get started.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the semifinals. All four players are here with us already, ready to start their clashes. So let's go ahead and tell them that they can make the first moves.
All right, you guys are good to go.
And on that note, welcome everybody joining us on the virtual platform of the Q2B conference. This is my first quantum computing conference, but not my first time on Twitch. So, hello both to you on the virtual platform of the conference tuning in and here on my Twitch channel. Thank you so much for being here for the semifinals. The first moves are already on the board. Chris, we need to catch up. It's the French defense, my favorite opening on the big board on the left side.
So we have game one on the left, which is Doug Strain versus Nico Krisiak. And
Mhm.
game two, you can see in the small board on the right. I can switch back and forth between them if we need to jump. So
Amazing. So the two semifinals taking place at the same time. First, we're going to talk about the big board. That is Doug with the black pieces against Nico with the white pieces. They are playing a very classical opening, the French defense advanced variation. So far, no quantum moves have happened. So for now, everything is normal. Chris, what do you think will be the first quantum move? Do you see any ideas? And please, you in case they missed the show on Thursday, what is the essence of quantum
Right.
chess? What's the difference between traditional chess and quantum chess?
So quantum chess is a lot like chess. All the pieces move the same. They follow the same movement patterns. The key difference is that it introduces a split move, which lets your piece exist in a quantum superposition of being on multiple squares at once. So I hope we see one of those soon. We saw some in the opening. If we get any amount of downtime, I can jump over to Sandbox Mode and actually demonstrate this stuff. And we will be able to see both games in Sandbox Mode as well. So you let me know if you want me to show anything.
I think we could quickly address the other game as well, the opening, and then switch over to sandbox mode if the players will spend more time on the next moves. But this too, here, Sean playing with the white pieces against Alexander, and it is now, I was gonna say a traditional position, not as traditional as the first match we were observing. It's an e4, e5 opening, but black is still behind in development. And usually in traditional chess, flank pawn pushes, so that pawn push to a6 is not as essential as moving the pawns in the center. Fighting for the center and developing one's pieces is one of the essential objectives in the opening stage.
Okay, so I'm curious. When I was meeting with Alex over the weekend, we were talking about his split to b5 and d5 that was the really good prep. And I mentioned that I think one of the counters to that would be this a6 push.
Oh,
So maybe he was
so I
anticipating.
see. Because I was thinking to myself, between Sean and Alexander, I think Alexander has more chess experience. Sean said he knows how the pieces move, and that's about it in terms of his chess experience. But Alexander, with a preventive move, he doesn't want to allow the king jumping, the knight jumping to b5. Um, and we're just gonna make sure that you guys can see the cameras fully. I think, Chris, if you click on studio mode, you can have the window of the editing on the left side, and you
Okay.
will not have to bother with it on stream. But we
Sorry,
want to make
didn't
sure.
realize it was
No worries, no worries. It happens to me
there.
constantly. I know this by experience because this is what I do all the
There we
time.
go.
But now I'm seeing the editing screen. This is gonna be interesting from my end.
Sorry.
No worries. Maybe you just need to share your screen with me later on Discord so that I can see the games too. We do get a close up of the
There we
players.
go.
Very focused faces.
Okay. Can you?
I can see the boards now. Yes, everything
Okay.
is back to normal. So again, for now, no quantum move has happened. I think that gives us some time to explain what you were describing, Chris, as the main difference between quantum chess and traditional chess. So if you would like to go to sandbox mode and show an example for all the viewers that are tuning in and they don't know what quantum chess is like, can we show a basic example?
Yes. So let me just start a new game in sandbox mode here.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, we have all of your standard moves. The biggest difference is I can split this knight, for instance, to occupy two
Mm-hmm.
different squares at once. So now it's in superposition. And what it really does is it creates two different boards that exist at the same time. So in one of those boards, the knight is on c3, and on the other board, the knight is on d2. Um, Later in the game, at some point, a measurement might occur that will what we call collapse the superposition, but it'll basically determine which square the knight is or isn't on. But while it is in superposition like this, you can get interesting effects like this pawn stepping forward 2 and becoming entangled with the knight. So then a measurement of 1 will collapse both of them. This little extra view that I brought up shows some entanglement information. So the rings around the outside, if they're the same color, it means they're entangled to be in the same universe in some sense. So
Mm-hmm.
this pawn right here is entangled to be in the same board as this knight on d2, and then the pawn on c2 is entangled to be on the same board as the knight on c3.
Yes,
So
so the pawn push to c4 can only happen if the knight is not on c3, but at this stage of the game, we don't know where the knight is for sure. There's no
right,
100% it's here or there because the knight has been split. And what is the moment in quantum chess when it's the moment of truth, when we figure out whether there's a pawn on c4, whether the knight is on d2? Can you explain to everyone how measurement works
right.
in quantum chess?
So whenever you have two different types of pieces that try and occupy the same square, the game will force a measurement so that it can always uniquely say it's either type A or type B, or neither maybe. But so
Mm-hmm.
like if I tried to move this queen on D1 forward to D2,
Mm-hmm.
that is a legal move in quantum chess because the knight is in superposition of both being there and not there. So it's going to force a measurement on D2 to determine if the knight is there or not. So if I attempt that move, it measures this D2 square, found that the knight is there, so the queen can't then move there. But you notice it also collapsed the pawn to be on C4, so that's a consequence of the entanglement. Um, the other outcome is also possible. So the measurement outcomes are random, determined based on the probability of finding the piece in that square.
I find it fascinating how random it is. So there's no way of figuring out is it more likely that my knight is on d2 or c3 in this case because the knight was split between two squares. But if you end up splitting the same piece multiple times, so you keep splitting that knight, will that give me a bit of a better chance to know where my knight is? Is it more likely now that the knight is on c3 and not on e4 or f3?
So it is still 50% likely that it's on C3, but then on
Mm-hmm.
E4 and F3 each have a 25% probability individually.
So that is the probability. But even if the probability is low, it could still be the location of the
It
knight. I
absolutely
love the
could.
visual effect. I called it the liquid the first time I played quantum chess, and I still think of it as a liquid. The signal that shows how likely the place of how likely the placement is for the knights in terms of which one is higher percentage. Let's go back to the games because I think we do have our first quantum move of the day. Uh, in this game, would you like to talk us through what has just happened, Chris, with the bishop?
Yes, so we have a quantum move that has split this bishop to be on D2 and E3. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix Alex's camera at the same time.
Sure, no worries. We're gonna get another close up of the focus of the players. It's also important to get into their skin. What do they feel? What do they think? How are they preparing for these matches? Because Alexander had a brilliant preparation, and I wonder if he has come up with something brilliant for today too. And what about Sean, who doesn't have as much chess experience, but he found a fascinating idea last week against Ethan with the rook to the back rank, trapping the king of white on the back rank.
There we go. Okay, yeah, so Alex has split his bishop. I like using the split moves on bishops because they
You
can,
do.
in some sense, guard themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use it to say threaten a king or a queen even. Um, so let's say one of these pieces of the bishop was staring down the queen. Um, you would have to make a choice. Okay, do you capture half a bishop with that queen and then risk being recaptured? Because capture doesn't always force a measurement. And I can
Doesn't
actually
always
show
force it.
that
Mm-hmm.
in sandbox mode again if you want.
Sure, sure. Let's take a look at that.
So let me just set up a couple of pieces here.
Um, in the meantime, let me just mention to the viewers another detail that Sean told us about. It was great for me to talk to the players in our preparation call. Basically, while we were setting up the broadcast, we had a chance to talk to them briefly, and Sean was highlighting too what Chris said last Thursday, that Sean, since among the four players, I think in the semifinal, Sean has less chess experience than the rest of the players. He may go for more quantum moves because it makes the randomness, the chaos, more um, basically. It makes it more random for the pieces of how they move, where they are. Normal strategies are out of the window. I think that's the word I was looking for. The more chaotic, the more random things become thanks to the quantum moves. I also think the more chances the lesser experienced players will have, because you don't want to face a grandmaster if you only know how the pieces move, but maybe with your quantum moves you can make it random enough for the more experienced opponent too.
Yes, and I found that too. I feel like in chess, if you're playing against a much more skilled opponent and you make one wrong move, there's not really much chance to come back. I mean, as long as your opponent knows what they're doing, it's pretty much game over. In quantum
Mhm.
chess, if you make a wrong move and you end up down a piece, well, you can start using split moves to give yourself some probability of getting back into the game.
Very true. And that's exactly what Sean did last Thursday. He was a queen down. A queen down in traditional chess is usually um, it usually means you're gonna lose the game. We call it the Bottas Gambit here on Twitch, and Alexandra um, is a very proud Bottas Gambit player herself, but playing without the queen usually is not a good idea. But Sean made it. He made a huge comeback without his queen. Having a queen down, he managed to checkmate Ethan's king, or capture it, basically. In quantum chess, you need to find the
Yes.
king and capture it. Very important difference. So what's happening to the two bishops here? You said the two bishops can basically be guarding each other if you split them.
Right. So here you have a situation where this bishop on f5 is staring down the queen on d3.
Mm-hmm.
So the queen is under threat. Now, normally in chess, this would be a single bishop because you can't split it, and the queen might just capture here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you capture a bishop on one of the possible boards. Now, the reason this didn't force a measurement is because there's two boards. On both of them, that move is legal, and it always ends up with a queen in f5. So on one, you capture the bishop, and then the queen is there. On the other, the queen just moves there. So you don't need a measurement to determine that f5 is occupied by the queen. So this leaves the bishop on e6 in a superposition of being captured and not captured. And now black could try and recapture on f5 with this bishop in e6. So 50-50 shot, and it worked, and now you're up a queen.
The queen is gone. Magic, but also science. The bishop was dead and alive at the same time. Schrodinger's bishop in this case. I love how in this case it's a lot riskier for white to try to take the bishop, because you if you end up succeeding, you win a bishop. But if the bishop was on e6, as in this example, it ended up being on e6, you're losing a queen. So
Yes.
will you go for it? Will you try? Are you feeling that it's your lucky day today and you're gonna gamble, or will you go for the more safe choice and retreat the queen?
So we have more splits on game two here. It looks like Alex split his bishop to be on f6 and g4.
Mm-hmm.
This is he's kind of threatening two files, I guess, or I mean two diagonals. So one of them, if Sean were to move his knight on f3, you're threatening the queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, you're in some sense baiting this bishop on b3 to try and capture on e6, hoping to be able to trade a half bishop for a full bishop, or at least just applying some pressure.
I see. So both Sean and Alexander have split a bishop each. And in this case, and now it's Sean to move. If he wants to take that half bishop on e6, there may or may not be a bishop on that square. And if there's none and you move the white bishop to the square, the pawn will capture your bishop for nothing.
Right.
So it's either half a bishop or not even half a bishop. But g4, what an aggressive move by Sean. He's going for that bishop on h5, which may or may not be there.
So this other
What do you
board looks
think,
like
Chris?
it's... Oh, I tend to think of it as not may or may not be there. I think of it as both there and not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
So
that's I misphrased it. You're right. It's
no,
there and not there at the same time. But is it a good idea to push g4 and try to capture a bishop that's half there?
I feel like that is a classical chess question, and I defer to your expertise. Would this normally be a good move if it was a full bishop?
It's a very aggressive move, but it can also bite back. In traditional chess, moving the pawns in front of a castled king usually is not a good idea, especially the g pawn when it goes that far from the king. I like to refer to the pawns in front of the castled king as the bodyguards, and you need your bodyguards as close to the king as possible. The further they go away, the less protection for the king. So in traditional chess, sometimes you can get away with moves like this, but it's quite risky. I wonder how it will have a quantum effect because pawns cannot make quantum moves, but pieces, yes. Minor pieces, heavy pieces, and the king,
Right.
obviously.
And the interesting thing about pawns is they can become split by interacting with other pieces that are in superposition. Like you saw the pawn stepping forward too, kind of through the knight that was in superposition. If
Hmm.
he were to capture on h5 here with his pawn would end up in superposition because the pawn moving diagonally is only legal if it's actually performing that capture.
Very true. I'm curious if we will get to see that in the future. Alexander is still thinking whether to move that half a bishop from h5 away or not. So I think we have a moment to take a look at the other match of the semifinals, which for now doesn't feature quantum moves in this very moment. But traditional chess wise, I think it's a very exciting position too, because one of the biggest differences I see immediately is that white has already castled. The white king is on g1 and the rook has developed, while the black king is still in the middle of the board. And that means that Doug needs to hurry up and castle as soon as possible if he doesn't want his king to get into trouble. So, usually, I think that's what he's doing, moving the g pawn. Maybe then the bishop will go to g7 and he wants to castle kingside too.
Would you put your bishop on g7 in this position?
Um, I think his structure, his setup makes sense. It's a very solid one, not very active. So his bishops on e6 and then on g7 too will be quite passive pieces. At the same time, it makes it difficult for white to break through. So as a defensive setup, I think it's all right. It will be more difficult for Doug to create attack from that setup because his bishops don't really have open diagonals. Do you see any quantum moves here for Nico that he could go for? He plays just rook c1 to attack the queen with a traditional move. Maybe then shall we see if Doug, would you move the queen away now that it's hanging? Would you move it away with a traditional move? They are playing so fast that I can't give alternatives. I'm gonna give up. Chris, tell us a quantum idea in this position, whichever color.
Let's see. It's kind of difficult in this position. You could maybe split your rook. Um, but even
And would you
that
split
is
it?
even that's a little questionable. I was thinking in the previous move, I would have used a split rook to occupy the c file.
Instead of the traditional rook move.
Right, because then if they move the queen, then you still have like a split rook here, and if Doug chose to trade rooks, well, he's only getting half a rook out of it.
Yeah. A question in the chat, and of course, we are both reading the chat. Thank you so much for your comments and your questions about the games and quantum chess in general. I think one of the questions I have seen was regarding whether white should split the rook by capturing on c8, and that's a mistake I made last Thursday because to me too it felt like, wow, if you can make a quantum move and capture and not capture at the same time, that's amazing. So there's a rule that you cannot use the quantum effect for captures.
Right. And that's purely a design choice. I decided that the point of the split move was to try and create superposition. And often when you're trying to capture with a piece that is in superposition, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
force a measurement which collapses the superposition. So it kind of counters the intent behind the split move.
Mm-hmm.
But we have had some interesting arguments for allowing that. So it might be changed in the future.
You think it may change in the future for captures to
Yeah, I mean
another.
it's open for discussion for sure.
I've just spotted another really interesting question, and that's my fellow streamer Maxis Theo. He's a friend of mine, and now he seems to be into the quantum powers too. He's asking if you can use the quantum effect to double castle. Can you castle kingside and queenside at the same time?
So you can't castle king and queen side at the same time. You
Oh no!
can, in some sense, get a quantum castle, and I can
Uh-huh.
show that in Sandbox.
Sure, a different entanglement, but I thought it would be really peculiar if you end up being able to castle both flanks. So that's one of the exceptions. It's not possible.
Yes, in the previous version of Quantum Chess, you were allowed to,
Oh.
and that could again be a rule change that is implemented in the future. But one of the interesting things you can do to get sort of a quantum castling effect is if you have all of these pieces out of the way, and let's say I have a split knight there.
Mhm.
So now I try and castle queenside, and you get this
Oh.
state where everything is in superposition and everything is entangled. So if you do this right click, you see all the little entanglement relationships that pop up. So,
And
but
that means that castling is only possible if the knight is not on b1. You split the knight between the b1 and b5 squares, and castling is only a possible move if the knight is on b5. But we don't
right,
know for sure. It is there and not there at the same time.
yes. So we actually have an interesting situation here on board one. We have our first split of the game here.
Ooh, and that's such a tricky position because the objective in quantum chess is to capture the king, so the black king is immediately in danger, maybe in danger. We are not sure if the rook is on c8 or c7, it's split between the two squares.
Yes, and so it's threatening both the king and the queen right now.
A double attack in traditional chess is one of the most powerful tools. Now, in quantum chess, it could only be one or the other. You cannot take both the king and the queen, right? So the
Right,
measurement would happen if you try to capture one of them.
right. So it would measure. So let's say Nico tried to capture the queen on d7. It would first measure his rook on c7 and ask the question, is the rook here? If
Yeah.
the answer is yes, then you capture the queen. If the answer is no, then you don't capture the queen, and it results in your rook collapsing to be 100% on c8, which can then be captured by the queen.
I
So,
think Doug was showing crossed fingers. He's
oh,
going for it. He's
he's going
gambling.
for it.
He's taking the rook on c8,
Oh,
hoping
and he
it's
got
there.
lucky.
And he did. He did get lucky. We need to explain what happened. Chris, I think we need Sandbox Mode. Doug went for it. He showed crossed
Okay.
fingers into the camera and he went for it.
All right, so let's set this up. Actually, wrong color. So we have something like
The queen and the king are the important parts, and of course the rook that was split. I thought
Yes.
Nico's move was such a strong one because it could have won the game. It
It,
could have won the game with that idea of the king being attacked and the queen. Like the two most important pieces are targeted with this rook split.
yes.
But Dog went for it.
So sometimes in quantum chess, you just have to cross your fingers and go for it.
Hmm.
Doug did, so he went for, because really there's not another great option. I mean, you can start splitting your king to try and give it some safety, so he could have done something like that. But
Which
still,
is another interesting defensive resource to split your king so that it's not sure where it is.
yes, and still that leaves the queen vulnerable. So either way, you're either gambling losing a queen or losing the game.
Yeah.
And so Doug went for the capture here, and the
I
response is
guess,
obviously try and
yeah.
recapture the queen.
And that will measure whether the rook was on c8 or c7. I was just thinking that I guess Doug made, out of the two, he made the smarter choice when it comes to will I lose the game? Or maybe in this case he could have ended up losing the queen, but at least not losing the full game. His king would have
Right.
still been alive.
Yeah. So he went for this. In this case, um, White got lucky, but in the game,
In the
the
game, Nico did
measurement,
not get lucky.
yes,
He took, and the measurement wasn't as fortunate as the one we are showing on the
right
analysis
there.
board. So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. It depends. It's random.
Yes. Now, another interesting response to this might have been something like that. So it reduces the probability that this rook can actually reach the king to about
Oh.
25%. So
Mm-hmm.
you're gambling a 1 in 4 chance of losing the game with some queen safety. So if he had then tried to capture the king and end the game, you notice that it doesn't fully collapse. The probability is adjusted
Mm-hmm.
because the question that the measurement asks is the rook here and can it reach the king simultaneously? And if the
Yeah.
answer is no, then that means it's less likely that the rook is there and also
Mm-hmm.
more likely that the queen is blocking.
Mm-hmm.
So then a response could be to take this queen on d8 and try and capture here. So now you're still left with like a 50-50 of losing the game, but you could also not capture and just let your opponent keep wasting away the rook. So
Mm-hmm.
that might have been an interesting defense, but in the game we saw another good one.
Doug went for it. He could have lost the queen. He ended up winning the rook. And I think we need to head back to the other game as well because there are more and more split pieces in this game between Sean and Alexander. What has happened? Sean has then, he first split his bishop, so with the white pieces. Sean went for the bishop split. Then now what I see is that his kings are split to, well, he has now two kings, it looks like. It's one king split between two squares, and the rook on the queen side is also split.
Yeah, so he's going for maximum superposition, I think, to try and uh, confuse Alex.
And this is exactly what he mentioned. Since he feels like he has less chess experience, less traditional chess experience, he wants to go for the randomness. He wants to make it confusing and chaotic. So it is not as easy for Alexander to find the right strategy, the right responses to these quantum moves.
Yeah.
A question by Simply Noir is if you can end up in a super position where both kings are in a checkmate position. Um, I I think it's also important to add here once again that the game should end with a king capture. So a checkmate position on its own wouldn't end unless the king hasn't been split. How does that work, Chris? You always have to capture the king.
You always have to capture the king, but you can get an interesting scenario where you get the two kings entangled so that if one is captured, then the other is captured as well.
Oh,
So, like a simultaneous loss.
and that would be a draw in quantum chess
That
if
would be a
both
draw
kings
in
are
quantum chess,
captured.
yes.
Well, that's really cool because you cannot give checkmate to both kings in traditional chess. So it's possible to make draws in many ways, but not by double checkmate. One
Right.
person gives checkmate first, and then it's game over. But you're saying that if the kings are entangled in a way that they would be both captured at the same time, it is possible in quantum chess to make a draw like that.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I can show that in Sandbox if you'd like to see. So if we, oh, let's say we split this king, capture a piece of it, right? This white queen no longer matters. So now if the black queen here were to try and capture the white king,
Mm-hmm.
that's only possible if the black king has already been captured. So it entangles the two and simultaneously measures and collapses everything to be one outcome or the other. So
I see.
in this case, the outcome was that the black king hasn't been captured,
And it can
but
stand next to the other king even if it's then back to traditional, so that the percentage is back to 100%.
right, yeah, like I said, in or like you've said a few times, there's no
Because they can
concept
capture each
of
other.
check
Yeah.
in quantum chess. So any of the
Hmm.
rules regarding check or moving your king into check or anything like that don't apply. So you can have them next to each other because you can have superpositions of them next to each other to try and bait captures.
Yeah, I think that's something that the chess part of my brain, which is 99.9%, has to understand, that you can place the king next to each other because it's about capturing the other king. So it's not
Yes,
illegal. In traditional chess, this is not possible.
right. But so even if it were like this, you could attempt this. And so you see both kings are gone now.
Hmm.
So black simultaneously captured the white king and measured his own king out of existence.
Wow. And it
So,
doesn't matter that in that case it would mean what also Schneehand has picked up on in the comments, that if it meant that the Black King was actually captured earlier, and that's why this capture is possible, it doesn't matter the sequence. It's just that
right.
they disappear from the board at the same time, and then it's a draw.
Yes. If you ever have a state where one king is 0% or both kings are 0%, that is when the game ends and the players are decided, the winners are
Yeah.
decided. So,
I think before we go back to the games, I one important question to address. You already have talked about this last broadcast, but there's so many new viewers that I would like to ask you again, Chris. Why quantum chess? A couple of the viewers who are used to traditional chess are confused. Why do we need to make chess more complex? So please tell us about what's the idea behind quantum chess,
yes.
why this is so meaningful.
So my goal was not to improve on chess. My goal was not to make chess more fun or more complex. My goal was to give people a way to experience quantum phenomena in something that was recognizable and relatable. Chess is one of the most widely recognized games in the world. And so I wanted to create a game where, as you're playing, you get to use quantum mechanics, quantum phenomena like superposition, entanglement, interference that we haven't touched on yet in actual gameplay, so that you might start to develop some sort of intuition about how it works. Um, I often use the analogy of gravity. We all sort of have this intuitive understanding of gravity. If you drop something, it's going to fall. If you throw something, you can make pretty good guesses about where it's going to land on the ground. You don't need
Hmm.
to go and study all of the physics and math behind gravity to do that. It's just something that you've been interacting with since you were born, and so it makes sense.
Hmm.
I wanted to give people a way to interact with quantum physics to try and accomplish something similar. And I like chess; it's fun. So quantum chess.
I think you have achieved what you wanted. If I just take a look at my personal experience of how much I had known about quantum mechanisms, quantum computing, and how these quantum terms What do they refer to? What do they mean? What is entanglement? What is superposition? What is interference? I had no idea what those terms mean in the quantum world. But then you showed me the game a couple of years ago. That's when I played quantum chess for the first time. And I started seeing through chess what could that mean in a more scientific way too. So I think it's a great tool for teaching quantum terms and quantum concepts to us. I don't know how many of the viewers are just like me. I feel like a science noob. I don't have much knowledge about science and computing, but I feel like I can learn a lot through a game that I have played in chess, and now we're applying the quantum concepts onto a game that I have known about.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I like the idea a lot, and I still find it a magical world where these pieces can be split and be on the parallel squares in parallel universes. We need to head back to the games and see how many parallel universes are in this game between Sean and Alexander. And the time is ticking. It's 6 minutes for both players already. They're down to their final 6 minutes.
Yeah, and so one thing we haven't mentioned yet this stream, if a game ends in a draw, or if it goes for the allotted 1 hour maximum time limit for the game, we decide the winner by a king face-off that's run on an actual quantum computer. So it'd be interesting to see if we get there today. We had one of those last week, so.
I just want to mention that today on stream I showed how a quantum computer looks like because I obviously had no idea what that thing was when I first saw a picture. It looks like a beautiful chandelier. It looks like a piece of decoration, something you would see in an art gallery, perhaps. And that's how quantum computers look like. I also had no idea they need to be really cold. That depending on the temperature, they have different segments, and some of them are really really cold. So this is a brand new world. And yes, we will be using a quantum computer, that beautiful chandelier, to decide the tiebreaker today, too.
So we had a split here on this board.
Mm-hmm.
Nico had split the bishop to occupy d8 and e7 here, threatening the rook with the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm
And
sorry,
now,
Doug.
yeah,
No, I have my colors flipped. I'm sorry. So
it's all
Doug
right.
had split the bishop. I guess maybe baiting that knight to capture.
Might have been the idea. Now, this final move was a king split, making sure that the knight cannot capture the king. So he's moving both to g7 and h7. We saw this in the first game of Doug as well. Doug was the player who has gone for the absolute defense based on splitting the king constantly. There were moments when he had a king which looked like on 6 7 squares at the same time. So he went for as many possible splits of the king as he could in order to try to hide the king and make sure that the opponent cannot capture it. I think it's a good defensive idea. I'm glad to see it being used by Doug. It's his trademark at this stage.
Yes. So we had two questions in chat I wanted to address. One asked what kind of quantum computer the King face-off would be run on, ion trap or superconducting qubits, and it would be superconducting qubits. And then the other one, somebody asked if this game is actually running on a quantum computer right now. No, it's not. I've written my own simulation of what a quantum computer does. The game runs on that. We have over the summer. I collaborated with Google to get it running on their quantum computing hardware.
Mhm.
We can't run a full game on hardware yet. We have gotten the ability to run a handful of moves on quantum computing hardware, though. So we can use it for things like the king face-off or demonstration purposes. But next step will be trying to get the ability to run a full game in some sense on quantum hardware.
I think we'll get there one day. And in the meantime, because you already have the simulation of the quantum computer processing, everyone can play quantum chess. This game is accessible on Steam. And if you are watching on Twitch, we have a command !quantum chess with the link to the game. And you can all become beta testers as well of the newest version. We are seeing the newest version now as part of the tournament.
Let me try and pull up some other questions I saw.
Sure, and I see another king split in the other game too. If we go back to our our first clash after g4, so Sean earlier has gone for this aggressive pawn push and then ended up splitting the king between the corner and the h2 square. Um, how do you see this position, Chris? Was that a good idea to split the pieces this way? And now this final move, the bishop to c5, is a traditional move, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. So I think a traditional response will be the one that captures the bishop.
And we see that. So I like the king split. It gives your king some safety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the rook split here, I'm not so sure about. I feel like a rook that wasn't in superposition on, say, I don't know, c1 or a1 to help with a pawn push might be stronger here.
Yes, it feels like Sean's pieces can't attack at the moment. They are still hiding behind a pawn chain, so he'll need to try to activate the pieces, get them to more active positions, maybe by splitting the rook again, keep on splitting it, or move the bishop away from b3. He could try to do that first as well to have the b5 for the rook. Not a simple position. He goes back to the corner with one of the rooks, and that would have been an occasion in which, if I remember correctly, Chris, White had the option of merging the pieces. So you can split them, but you can also merge them into one if you make a move that's from b1 to c1 to the corner.
Right, and so we can actually see. So the little radar wedges, we call them for now,
Mm-hmm,
they give you some phase information that tells you how interference works, and the way merges work is by interference. And so I
mm-hmm,
think that they were previously what we call in phase, where he would have been able to merge them back to a1.
mm-hmm.
Now they're out of phase, and so a merge move wouldn't accomplish what you think it might.
Yes,
So
it was possible before, but not anymore because this half rook from b1 has moved to a1. We don't know if it was moving from b1 actually or not. There's no measurement yet happening to the rooks. In the other game, we have now. I think these moves will be speeding up a lot because the players are going down to their final minutes. Chris, would you like to sum up the format again, the time control, and how long they have until the quantum computer will decide their fate?
yeah, so it's a 20-minute starting time, 15-second increment, um, and a hard 1 hour time limit. So if either game goes to a full hour, we call a stop to it and we decide the outcome based on a king face-off run on a quantum computer.
How long till the 1 hour? How long they have to finish the game on the board and
So
not be relying on the supercomputer, the quantum computer?
I think we have about 13 minutes left because we started
Mm-hmm.
at 2. So
Yes. So 13 more minutes to see whether each player can hunt down the king. Remember, that's the objective in quantum chess, to capture the opponent's king. If we go back to the other semifinal match where we have the black king split, but the white king is still traditionally standing on the g1 square. So if the g1 king, if the white king was attacked and captured, then we know that that king is gone. But for black, splitting the king means that you would have to try to capture both kings. You start with one. There's a measurement, potentially a measurement telling you whether the king was there or not. It's a very interesting situation, and I wonder if it will mean that Nico with the white pieces too will start splitting the king to make it safer.
yeah, I'm curious. He might not until he feels threatened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not seeing. Oh, do you see any major threats to his White King? It does feel open, like
It's very open through the diagonal, and now
Oh, there's a threat.
Queen d1 is a major threat. Doug is back in the game. He had that very tricky and difficult moment when the rooks of Nico were split to attack the king of black and the queen at the same time. But now black has taken the full lead, and Nico is going for the king split. So Nico is in trouble. Nico is now fighting to survive with the queen down, and both the black queen and the rook are going for the king. Whether it's on f2 or g2, that rook on c2 is basically attacking the full rank. It's not the same though, depends on where the king is.
Yeah, well, he can do something similar to what we saw last game. Uh-oh.
I hope we are here.
Sorry, I think I lost you for a second.
Sure, no, as long as it's only me, we are fine. I was worried if it's the stream, but I think we are back.
But
We
I
are back.
do think I lost the games.
Oh no.
Yeah, my computer like shut off there for a second, so let me
Oh.
try and get the games back.
Sure, and I'll just double check if the stream is still on. Everything is fine. Thank you so much, everyone, for confirming it. It was a moment of the computer deciding that it's too big brain everything that we are discussing, and decided to take a break. I think we are back from the break, but we will need to update the games to be able to receive the moves again. Thank you again for tuning in. All of you are joining us today. I hope that you enjoy this stream. It's a very different type of chess. It looks, I think from the outside, if it's your first time seeing quantum chess, it will look like a very complicated game, but it's not as complicated as it seems. I think it's tricky to see it from the outside and how it is when you try it yourself, because if you make those split moves and you see the effect and you can click on the tool and see the percentages, you can see whether there's interference or not. So it's different when you make those moves and you are experiencing the quantum effect on your own pieces. I think it's a lot easier to understand when you try those moves yourselves. We'll bring back the game in a moment. In the meantime, make sure to ask further questions about quantum chess if you have any other questions relating to how it works in the game, how the quantum concepts work on the chessboard. And who is going to win this match? I also see a couple of you rooting for either Nico or Doug. Who is going to win this clash? You see the other board, the smaller board is the game between Sean and Alexander, and on the main board, we arrived for the final moment, and the handshake by Doug. We've arrived
Doug won
for the victorious moment of Doug. The king of Nico has just been captured.
Well, that was unfortunate that we missed that the very end there. It looks like he won by capturing on f3, possibly with a measurement that collapsed the piece. We'll have to check the move log and see if I can figure that out.
Absolutely.
Let me see if I can get back to game 2 before we miss the end of that one as well.
Sure, and I think the players will be joining us as soon as we have game 2.
Yes.
I'm sure they are waiting right now to tell us about their experience, how this final move, this queen capture happened. We just missed it, but we're gonna have both Doug and Nico to tell us about the game and what was it like when Doug's king was in danger at the start, and Nico unfortunately lost the rook and in the end had his king captured. So in a moment, we're going to bring up game 2 and also talk to Nico and Doug in a moment, as soon as we have our setup of the second game. So these are the 2 semifinal matches being played at the same time. Alexander and Sean are still playing. On our smaller board, you can see their clash. Okay. And I think that gives us a moment to talk to Nico and Doug.
Well, here's game 2, so
Goodness me, lots of split moves. Sean has split everything he could. Sean with the white pieces is going for all the magic powers.
All right. Do you want to talk to Nico and Doug and then come back to this?
Yes, but I think we need to leave it on the board though because they are down to their final 2 minutes. So
Okay.
we will have to be very quick talking about both games at the same time. But let's mute ourselves on this call, Chris, and talk to the players.
Okay.
I hope, by the way, that Alexander and Sean have us muted. Will they be hearing us? That could be an issue.
They might, yeah.
Uh-oh. I'm just seeing that they both are wearing headphones.
How do you want to handle this?
We may have to interview them all at the same time, so we may need to wait for this game to finish first if the
Okay.
players can stay. I'm not sure. Could you talk to them for a second, Chris, to let them know?
Yeah. Yeah, I will.
Oh, our camera has disappeared from here, but it's all right. It's more important to see the players than us. It's more important to see the players than us. And where is the King of Sean? I see the king being split between 2 squares. The queen is split on 3 squares. We're going to bring back the cameras in a moment. We're going to bring them back now. But I'm just trying to figure out where all those pieces are. Sean is splitting everything possible. I like how he's using the quantum powers to split all the pieces possible. So we're going to bring up that board again on the main board because that's the game that's still ongoing. And then we hope to talk to Nico and Doug if they have a moment. But it's going down the wire. This other semifinal game, both players are down to their final minutes. 2 minutes for Sean, a minute and a half for Alexander. And Alexander will need to try to
Doug and
figure
Nico,
out.
can you guys hang out for a little bit? I think we're 5 minutes to the end of the game. Okay.
Thank you so much, Chris. I hope that they can stay. We didn't expect the 2 games finishing almost at the same time, but it's happening. That game has just ended. We're going to talk to Nico and Doug as soon as we can, but Sean and Alexander are still fighting. The queen of Sean has made it all the way to a7, and it could be captured by a rook, but it's not sure that that capture rook takes a7 makes sense because the queen has been split. So you're only capturing a part of that queen. You're not sure whether the queen will end up being there on that square or not.
Right. And it. So if he tried to capture. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm just looking at White's moves now.
Goodness me, the king of Sean
It's
is now
running.
on
It's
3
splitting.
squares. It's
He
splitting
might
on
be
3
going
squares.
for the king face-off ending. We have 4 minutes left.
4 minutes left, and in this very moment, Alexander has a choice. Oh, he's playing bishop takes f3 because that is potentially attacking the g2 king or the h1 king if there's no king on g2. So all of the kings that you see for Sean are under attack, but you can only try to measure. You can only try to capture one at a time, and if you choose the wrong square, you may end up losing your queen.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we just had 2 things happen.
Uh-oh. I
One,
think
Sean
that's
tried to capture the bishop on f3
yeah.
with his queen, and it measured the queen and found that it wasn't on f2 to do that capture. So
But
then
it also
Alex is.
means that his king was now revealed on g2, so he has to split it
Yes.
again.
So he's running now.
He's trying to run because if he had stayed on g2, he was gonna lose the game instantly. And now again, Alexander could take with the queen on f1, try to see if the king is there. But if it's not there, you are losing your queen on that square.
Yeah.
What a fascinating position. And as you said, we have only a few minutes until it's the end of the game. That is, if the players don't find a way to finish the game, but maybe they will find a way. Wait a second. That split queen is attacking the king. The king captures it.
Yes.
Whew. Okay, so that queen is gone, but the rook is entering the 7th rank too. Both kings are in absolute danger. This could be it. It could be the capture of the king in any moment for both players.
Interesting. But they're going to have to hurry up if they want to finish. We've only got like 2 minutes left. I think we're heading for another king face-off.
Because the kings are so split, both the white king and the black king, it's gonna be almost impossible to hunt them down. But Alexander is trying. He goes for that knight jump that attacks 2 of the king positions. Fascinating game. Fascinating game. Both kings are still alive. Dead and alive at the same time, it looks like. And if it's not finishing in a minute, we're gonna have a king face-off on an actual quantum computer. What's gonna happen, Chris? King face-off. This rook move. The rook is split, so the rook is attacking, possibly attacking the king positions of black, the f8 and f6 kings. The rook is gone. So what's their measurement?
Yes, he tried to capture the f6 king, and it measured his rook and found that it wasn't in a position to do so.
And black tried to capture the king on e1 and found that it wasn't there either.
Well, he did capture it on whatever boards in the superposition it was there.
In a parallel universe, it has been captured there, but there are still parts of the king that has to be captured, has to be found and captured. Whew. It is Schrodinger's king indeed, guys. It is Schrodinger's king. The rook is back on f7, so it's going for the same rook split.
Oh, so Alex has a chance to, and he did it right at the wire. Wow.
Tell us about what happened in that final moment, and then we hope to have the players joining us.
So, oops, I'm sorry. I just returned to the menu.
No worries.
So in the final moment, Alex moved through one half of the king that was there to try and capture the other for an entangling capture.
A king exposed your bishop.
So
I think we have
already
over to
talking about the game already, Chris. We may need to let them in because they want to tell us about the games. As I'm gonna mute myself on this call and join them. If you can also join me, Chris, on their call.
Okay, so who do you want to talk to first, Anna?
I think since we have just witnessed the end of this game, maybe we should start with Alexander and Sean. I want to talk about all the games and all the quantum moves, but since they started discussing the game already, maybe we should start with them.
Okay.
Thanks to Doug and Nico for their patience.
So do you want to unmute yourself on the
sure.
On their
I'm joining you. I'm joining you now.
All right. Okay, so we're going to talk to Sean and Alex first, and then we'll talk to Nico and Doug.
Thank you so much to all the players, first of all. What a fascinating day of semifinals and this final hunt down of the kings. I didn't know how many splits of the king happened between the two of you, Alexander and Sean. We will try to take a look at this final position. Chris, if there's a way to bring the board back, the final capture that we have witnessed, is there a way to show it again?
So unfortunately, I exited out of that, and I don't think I can get back into it. I can show
it's all right.
a similar setup in Sandbox, but...
Sure, let's just listen to Alexander and Sean in the meantime then about their thoughts on what happened in this really peculiar game. Sean, can you hear us? Let me know if you are with us, and I'd like to ask you first on... I'm not sure if Sean can hear us. Sean?
You're still muted on the meet call, it looks like.
Am I? Oh, wait a
Yeah.
second. I think I found my right microphone
Yes.
on mute and mute this time. Sorry, I was talking to the players constantly and didn't realize I'm muted on this call. Thank you so much to all of you, to all four of you, for this amazing match in both games. I thought there were so many exciting moments, and we would love to talk to all of you about some of the crucial moments. I was asking first, Sean, if you guys don't mind that I'm starting with the game between Sean and Alexander because it has just finished with that king hunt. Both of you split your kings and you were trying to hide it. How did it feel like? What did you think was going on? Sean, if you could answer that question first, and then you, Alexander.
Well, with increments at play, I mean, the king hunt was kind of a fool's errand. It felt like because the best outcome, I mean, there's a few outcomes that you could hope for. So one thing I was trying to do, of course, is run down the timer. Earlier, I had a slight time advantage, but I fell behind once I got stressed out with when he brought his knight in to attack my king as well as the queen. I was too worried about figuring out what the best placement for splitting my king was. So then I tried to go for some long shot. I made a long shot capture attempt with a piece of my rook against his king, and of course that didn't work out. But yeah, basically it was very low time and just trying to stay alive.
And you almost did it. You almost did it. Alexander, what were your thoughts, especially in that final moment when it felt like Sean's king was dead and alive on every possible square?
Oh yeah, that was tricky. When you're low on time, it's quite stressful, to capture 1/4 of a king and 1/8 of the king, and it's still on the board,
Yeah, you were down to the wire. We were about to call it for the king face-off in the end.
Oh yeah, that was stressful. Yeah, that was very stressful to me actually.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah, but
Chris, did you spot any other critical moments that you wanted to ask about? I was wondering from the quantum perspective.
I would actually have to review the video of the game. But
yes, the final moments happen so quickly. And
yes.
Sean, you tried to go for the same rook split a couple of times in case it will end up working, because it could have been there. Your rook could have been on F7, capturing the king.
But I don't think I would have lost. Yeah. Even if you were successful, I don't think I would have lost because you would have captured only half of my king.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It would not have been a... Yeah. That was my mistake. I also went for another thing, and I actually made a small input error. I don't know if you noticed, I made a very weird move with my queen, and I was actually trying to split it, and then I did not split it by accident, and then I just moved my queen in to death. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Oopsies.
It happens. Mouse slips happen in traditional chess too, even to the world champions. I think, Sean, you should be feeling okay about it. If Magnus Carlsen can mouse slip, you can also mouse slip. I think that's allowed. Doug and Nico. Sorry, Alexander, go ahead.
Yeah, I made a critical mistake. My king was exposed to a bishop, and it could have been captured because a bishop was classical and king was classical, yes.
Oh, so before you split your king could have been attacked by
there was
bishop.
There was this bishop placed very nicely, which was very annoying throughout the game. And and at some point, Sean could have captured and won.
I see. I think we may have been looking at the other clash between Doug and Nico in that moment, because I don't recall that moment. We're gonna have to take a look at the full game to analyze it.
Exchanged it with a knight, so then I was safe.
I see. So you rescued your king in that critical moment, and there were many critical moments in the game between Nico and Doug as well. Nico, we thought that you were going for the kill with that rook move that you split between attacking the queen of Doug, and it was a back rank check as well. And then Doug, with all the bravery he had, he crossed fingers, he showed it to us as well, and went for the capture on C8. Tell us about what happened in that moment, Nico, how it felt that could have been you winning the queen, but it also ended up being that you lost that rook that moved to c8.
So we got our cameras mixed up.
Right.
Alex dropped, and now they're switched. So I'm gonna have to fix the cameras.
That's all right. I think even if they are mixed up, Chris, don't worry.
Okay.
I think as long as people can be seen on the stream, it's all right if we don't have the right name tags. But yeah, I was just curious about that moment, Nico. First of all, when you split the rook, did you think that move? It felt like a really strong move. How did you feel about it when you found that move on the board?
Yeah, I was feeling lucky, and in the spirit of quantum chess, I wanted to make something happen, give us all some excitement. And
you did. You definitely did.
Yeah, and good game. Congrats to Doug.
Yeah, it's a really good. They have a saying, "Better lucky than good," right? So that was certainly the case there. There's a 50-50 chance. I mean, luckily for me, even if it went badly, I would have lost the queen for a rook, so it wouldn't have been game over. But I think whoever kind of came out that risky trade definitely had an advantage, and it was definitely a testament to Nico that he fought back and captured a half knight and kind of had initiative for a lot of the game too. So it was a pretty close game, I think, until just about the end.
Absolutely. What a fascinating turn of events. In that moment, as you said, Doug, it was a critical moment, but also later that Nico managed to find his way back into the game. Chris, any other points in the game between Doug and Nico that you would like to ask about, or in general to the players about the semifinals?
That was the main one. I would like to know how it actually ended, because if you recall, we missed the end. The games all dropped right before you guys ended your game, so we're gonna have to. I was scrambling to get back into them and didn't make it in time.
Yeah, so I think the game ended. The knight was pinned, and I'm not sure if it was a mouse slip or if you missed it. I was able to capture the queen.
Yeah, it was a
And,
blunder.
the king was kind of on the run and split a few times, but kind of at that point it was pretty much game over. So
Okay.
yeah, I captured a few half kings, and then eventually forced a measurement that ended the game.
Okay.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, I think the end was the classical way of using the queen and the rook together on the ranks, Doug. That was nicely done. In traditional chess too, it would have worked out very well, and so it did in quantum chess as well by capturing the half kings. How did you feel about today's semifinals in comparison to the quarterfinals? Which one do you think was more nerve-wracking, more stressful? The very first day, when it was the first quantum chess experience in a tournament atmosphere, or today? Was it more difficult today? And that's a question to all four of you. Sean, if you would like to start.
I mean, for some reason, I was definitely more nervous between before this one. I don't know why, but I don't have any chess background, so I'm happy to even beat one round. So hey.
You made it through the quarterfinals against
Yeah.
a difficult opponent after losing your queen. So that was a miraculous comeback that you produced in the quarterfinals. Well done. Nico, how did you feel about today and in comparison to the first day? Did you get to practice more quantum chess in between the two matches?
Yeah, I played a few games, and I was also inspired by Alex's game in the quarterfinals, where he gambled and won, which was pretty beautiful. And yeah, I'm happy that I got to play in the first ever quantum chess tournament. So that's the highlight. And I started to like the game, even though it is based on luck a lot, more than traditional chess. But I think there is merit to it, and there are strategies that are advantageous.
So you were inspired, Chris. I was just double checking if the viewers can also hear our participants. I hope that we have sound from the
It
meeting as
should.
well. Just
I
double
think so.
checking that we are not keeping the interview only for ourselves, because that would be a pity. Alexander, your thoughts, and since the rest of the participants are referring to your game as their inspiration, what will that mean for you and the future of quantum chess? Will you keep playing? What do you think about this game?
I think that there are still cute quantum moves to be discovered. So I don't know. I don't know them all. Maybe you guys have been working, but I'm sure that there are very nice strategies and tactics yet to be discovered. Yeah. So I don't know. Right now, I have very little intuition. I just had this little move which I practiced with my friend, the night split, which was cool. But yeah, as I'm saying, there are still quantum moves to be discovered.
Maybe this is the start of an entire quantum chess theory, and it could be named after you guys. If you are the first to apply it, Doug, how did you feel about the first two matches and your experience overall competing at quantum chess?
Yeah, I mean, both matches were pretty nerve-wracking, I'd say. I was pretty intimidated, actually. The first match, I looked up the opponent, Trevor Vincent, and he's actually a titled national master from Canada. So that was really like intimidating, for sure. And so I felt a little bit more comfortable going into this match. I had a little bit more time to prepare and test out some moves. But I mean, both were very tough games, and I've definitely felt on my heels both games. So I think I got a little lucky. So we'll see if the luck holds, I guess.
It's going to be an exciting clash between you and Alexander tomorrow, the final match of the first Quantum Chess tournament. Nico and Sean, thank you so much for joining us for this historical tournament, the first ever Quantum Chess tournament. You are all writing history here by being part of it and making it all the way to the semifinals. And good luck to Doug and Alexander for tomorrow. We will be back to cover the action, of course. Chris, final thoughts, questions to the players about today's games and the tournament in general.
I just want to say thanks for playing in the first ever quantum chess tournament. This has been a really cool experience for me. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have.
Certainly.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again to all four of you. Sean and Nico, we hope to see you in future Quantum Chess Tournament. And Alexander and Doug, we'll see you tomorrow for the final clash. We are looking forward to seeing more quantum openings, perhaps opening preparations or any other power moves that you two will come up with for tomorrow. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So Anna, we have Yanni from QCware that's going to jump on with us.
Awesome. So the organizer of the Q2B conference is joining us in a moment. Yanni, I think he's already here. That was quick.
Yeah, so let
That
me
was
just
very quick.
set up his camera and then we
Sure.
can talk to Yanni.
Absolutely. Let me know when we are good to go so that we have Yanni on screen as well.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I can hear you. I think we'll just make sure that the template also shows your
Sure.
camera. At the moment, I see you as Nico. Nico has played really well in the tournament, but I think we're going to make sure that we have the correct name on the scene. And just let me thank in the meantime everyone tuning in through the virtual platform of the conference, of the Q2B conference, or here on my Twitch channel. Thank you so much for being so keen on following the action of the first ever Quantum Chess tournament, which is not done yet. We still don't know who's going to be the winner. It will be decided tomorrow in the final match between Doug and Alexander. And we are now being joined by the organizer of this fascinating conference, Yanni from QCware. Yanni, can you tell us about more about the quantum computing conference, Q2B, and how did you and Chris have the idea of organizing a quantum chess tournament as part of the conference?
Sure, thanks. And thanks for having me. Just wanted to say thank you for everything you guys are doing. The conference has been going on for, this is the fourth installment of the conference. So initially we put it up back in 2017. It was a very small crowd back then, but it slowly grew to a bigger size. And thank you to all the sponsors, all the speakers, all the attendees for coming and supporting the conference. It's really what makes the conference and kind of all the networking that happens. So the way this got started is actually, it was at the prompt of Alan Ho from Google, basically saying, hey, check out what we did we had this exhibition match that was a lot of fun at our Google Quantum Summit earlier this year. So check it out, and I can introduce you to Chris if you want. And I said, yeah, of course, it looks a lot of fun. And we had a conversation with Chris, and we started playing around with the idea. But let me tell you guys, I had no idea how popular this would be with the community, and how the excitement it would create, and how great this would be, and how great all the commentary and all the players and all the matches would be. So we're definitely already made the decision to basically make this a permanent feature of Q2B events going forward. So,
Wow.
so I'm happy to announce that in Q2B 2021, which hopefully is going to happen in person, we would be happy to basically host the second quantum chess tournament. I hope you, Anna, and obviously Chris will be there, and I hope all the players are going to be there. And we're definitely going to expand the bracket, right? So this was done, we put it together very quickly, and so we just thought, let's have a small bracket, 8 players. I just contacted basically the first 8 companies or major players that are involved in quantum computing that said yes, made it in, and I know many more people wanted to be part of it, but obviously we couldn't make it happen for the very first one. But we're definitely going to expand it for 2021.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much for sharing that piece of news with us. This was our on-screen reaction. I don't know, Chris, if you knew about it, but for me, this was an absolutely surprising piece of information, and I'm so happy to hear it. That Yanni, you think of the quantum chess portion as a significant event that can be added to future conferences too. Tell us more about the conference in general. You said it's already the 4th edition. Can people still join, for instance, the viewers who are just learning about the conference, can they still join for tomorrow's activities or today's ones?
Absolutely. Actually, we still have 2 content-packed days. Actually, tomorrow we're going to hear from all the major hardware players in the quantum computing space. So we're going to have companies like IBM and Google and Microsoft and Honeywell basically discussing what they've been doing for the past year, and what are their plans for the future, what are their roadmaps going forward. We're going to have some of the biggest academics actually in the field. John Preskill is actually kicking off tomorrow. We have his keynote. It's the very first session of the day. He's considered one of the visionaries, one of the godfathers basically of quantum computing, and always has great insights. And he's always basically has been the cornerstone of our program. And on Thursday, we actually have even more content. We are going to hear from industry. So we have a full day industry track, basically with companies like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Airbus. We have big panels from automotive players like Aisin and BMW and Ford and Volkswagen. We have material design panels. Material design is actually one of the use cases, one of the big use cases that is expected to basically, quantum computing is expected to change the world through some of the things that will happen in the material design field. And we have industry representatives there. We also have a big pharma track with representatives from big pharma companies and how they will use quantum computing. We will also hear from the government perspective. As you might or might not know, there's a lot of investment from governments in the quantum computing space. So we're going to hear from U.S. government representatives, from European government representatives, and some Asian government representatives. And this is just some of it. I mean, I'm not gonna. I can keep going, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview.
I think that quick overview is already so interesting and colorful. You're covering every single perspective possible when it comes to quantum computing that I want to be there the whole day. As I'm gonna try to spend as much time as I can in the virtual space of the quantum computing conference. Chris, any thoughts that you'd like to add about the matches and your collaboration with Yanni, obviously, and the future 2021 second quantum chess tournament?
I'm looking forward to 2021. It's going to be exciting. I mean, I think like Yanni, I've always thought that quantum chess had potential. I didn't expect this much what we're seeing, with this tournament. So it's really cool to see that people enjoy watching it. I mean, I think it's fun to watch. You get exciting moments like the tension of, is that measurement going to work or not, right? I mean, what's he doing with this split? There's new strategies. I think it's really cool, and so I'm excited to see a larger tournament, possibly with more prep. I mean, now people have a year to prep instead of 2 weeks, so it'll be really cool.
Yanni,
And
what can we expect for tomorrow? It's gonna be the final day for the quantum chess tournament, and of course, as you already said, some of the programs are very colorful day tomorrow and the day after. So the conference is today, Wednesday, and Thursday, all 3 days, I believe. And people can still
exactly.
sign up for tomorrow's activities and the day after as well. In terms of the quantum chess tournament final, what would be your prediction? I'm not going to ask you to choose a winner, but I'm gonna make you predict who's gonna make the first quantum move between Alexander and Doug. The first quantum move, is it Google or Amazon?
It's hard, very hard, very hard. You're putting me on the spot here. I'm just going to go with Doug and Google, maybe. Yeah. Just for the quantum move, but with Doug's luck, I think he has a fair chance of actually winning the whole thing. So yeah, if I were to make a prediction, maybe it is Doug. But one other thing that maybe your community, Anna, can help us, because actually we've been struggling a little bit. We want to actually make a real prize. We want to actually provide a real prize to the winner. And we're kind of like we bounced a few ideas around. We still haven't kind of actually figured out what a real prize could look like. So I don't know if people in the community from your audience wants to maybe send us ideas, or you just submit them in the chat. Maybe we can look at some ideas and basically find what would be a real prize for the winner for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm gonna definitely rely on our very helpful community here on Twitch. You guys can let us know in the chat, what do you think would be a worthy prize for the first ever quantum chess tournament? And the conference also has a hashtag Q2B20. If you would like to tweet at us, use the hashtag Q2B20, and we will try to take a look at as many tweets as possible. I see that Chris also has added all the tags on social media, the Twitter profiles for QCware. There's Chris as well, Real Q Chess for Quantum Chess, and my tag as well. So make sure to, if you have come up with an idea what would be a great prize, or you have a question, or you would like to share your thoughts with us about the quantum computing conference or the chess tournament, make sure to use the hashtag Q2B20 on Twitter. Chris, what do you think? Your final thoughts. This is going to be our final thoughts for today, but tomorrow the final clash between Doug and Alexander will be taking place. What do you predict for tomorrow, and why shall people come back and watch that final game?
I think it's going to be a good game. Both of them are skilled chess players. Both of them have a good amount of experience with quantum chess. I mean, Doug through our collaboration with Google, and Alex has put a lot of prep in. So it'll be interesting to see if they come up with some new quantum strategies for tomorrow. As far as who's going to make the first quantum move, I'm kind of with Yanni. I think it's going to be Doug, unless I could see Alex coming up with some new quantum opening. But if we don't see that from him, then I think it's going to be Doug.
I'm putting that down, and I'm going to make my prediction on Alexander. I'm gonna predict Alexander because both of you picked dog.
Okay.
I think I need to represent the other side
Yes.
of the match as well, and we shall see tomorrow. So we will be back both on the platform of the conference and here on my Twitch channel for the final day of the first ever Quantum Chess Tournament, starting almost at the same time, a bit before that. Tomorrow we are starting half an hour earlier, but
Yes.
make sure to take a look at the full program. As Yanni said, there's plenty of activities and talks that you can attend tomorrow and the day after. We have a link. If you are watching on Twitch, we have a command that's !conference with link to the conference's platform and where you can sign up to attend all of the activities that were mentioned.
Okay.
Chris and
Well-
Yanni, final words. I'm very bad at final words, so I'm gonna rely on you two.
Just looking forward to the final tomorrow. I think it's going to be great, and just looking forward to the conference, and then just relaxing at the end of the tiring day with this very exciting game.
Yeah, me too. And thank you, Yanni and QCware, for the opportunity of doing this tournament. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm looking
It was our
forward to
pleasure.
tomorrow.
Thanks. Great.
Thank you so much, Yanni, for joining us. Thanks to QCware for providing the opportunity, and we can't wait to see what happens tomorrow and how the second Quantum Chess Tournament will be, now that we know that it will be part of the future conferences as well, 2021 and the upcoming years. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and see you all tomorrow for the finals and the rest of the activities of the conference of Q2B.
Bye.
Okay, great. Bye.